Hey guys, welcome to episode 411 of the Barbell Life Podcast. It's been a minute. We came back, we took a break. Now we have a really good plan of moving this thing forward. And the first thing I want to do today, we're just going to let you know, we're definitely going to, on this first episode, have a lot to give to you guys. I'm not going to do any podcasts where we're just talking about, all the cool stuff I want you guys to buy from us. Nothing to do. We're going to have a really good show today on muscular contractions and what those contractions, what types of adaptations they lead to. But before we get into that, I do want to let you know that what we're going to do moving forward is we're going to really focus on the following topics. So recovery, sleep and nutrition, of course, how to stimulate your desired adaptation, which that's kind of like today's episode. We're going to give you easy to understand reviews of the latest on research. That pertains to the topics that we're talking about, that is. Then, of course, we're weightlifting, powerlifting, SuperTotal. The barbell is always going to be a part of things, hence the name. Youth development with the barbell. We'll talk. Also, we're going to go over some free programming. I will give you guys episodes where we talk about types of programming and methodology. And then with that, I'll try to give you guys some free programs like we used to. We'll also do the latest in health and fitness, especially when it's focused on longevity, and to be specific on aging in a way where it's not just surviving, but aging gracefully and trying to have an active life as we get older. I mean, it's more of me, It's selfish, and hopefully the people listening to, as you guys get older, you'll be able to use this information for yourself and how to age gracefully. And then speed and agility will always be a part of things. And then, of course, athlete development, all the way from the youth to the adult. Okay, that's what we're going to be. Those are the topics. So if those all excite you, and I'm sure we're going to have the occasional where we just talk about things in life, but they will always be related something to health and fitness, And like when we first started, Chuck, if you're ever still listening, he's the one who started this whole thing with me, but we're fitness, faith, and family. It'll always be some parts of that. All right, without further ado, we're going to talk about contraction modes. For all of you that don't know, contraction mode, there's the concentric, which is when the muscle shortenings. Think about when you flex your bicep. Think of Popeye when he flexed his bicep and it balled up. That's when the muscle shortens. That is concentric contraction. Then there's the lengthening aspect. So when you're doing a curl, say a preacher curl, and you let the arm out, the muscle lengthens. That's an eccentric contraction. And then think about when you push really hard against the wall, nothing changes. You're producing force, but the length of the muscle doesn't change. That's an isometric contraction. Now, it's important that you understand that you can separate those. When you do the traditional training, say you do a squat, there's going to be some forms, there's going to be some forms of concentric, eccentric, and isometric contractions. So when you walk back and you're sitting there right before you begin the descent of a squat, that's an isometric contraction. Then as you start to go down, that's the eccentric portion. If you happen to pause in the bottom of the squat, that would once again be isometric. And then when you're standing up, the muscle's shortening, and that's the concentric contraction. Now, you can definitely separate those. And there's times, which we'll go over, that it's a great idea for you to do that. And with each of those comes specific adaptations. So it won't be the same. So that's why it's important you guys to know that is I want to fill your toolbox up with all these tools. And then when you have an athlete or yourself, when you run into an issue or you need to push past a certain plateau, you'll know which tool to reach in and grab to fix the situation. So let's go over the concentric contractions. The main adaptations you're going to get when you really focus on the concentric contractions. So think about doing bottom squats where you have put the barbell at a specific height and say you set it on top of pins and you start in the bottom and then you stand up. I think, wasn't it Milo that squatted his cow like that? And, as the cow got bigger, he adjusted. He dug a hole and he would go into that hole, put the cow on his shoulders and stand up. I don't know if I totally made that up, but you get my point. So you can do that in the squat rack. Smith machine, makes all of these focusing on these contractions very not only easy but safe as well. But when you really focus on just the concentric contractions, so think about doing squats from pins or presses from pins, or even the deadlift by sheer nature is concentric in nature, meaning that you start in the bottom. So you start with the deadlift, you start with the muscles lengthened, and then you start to stand up, and those muscles shorten, they contract, and you're able to stand up. But there's several different ways you can really focus on the concentric contraction, like squats from pins, cleans in nature, deadlifts, pulls, any of those types of things, or even doing like a Smith machine press into a throw. So you start with the bar on your chest and you explode up and throw the Smith machine into the air and then catch it, of course. But those are all examples of ways to focus on the concentric contraction. Now with that, the adaptations are going to be rate coding. And now the faster the contraction, the more you're going to focus on the motor unit, like the rate coding of the alpha motor neuron. The signal goes from the brain down the alpha motor neuron into all of the different muscle fibers that neuron innervates. And the faster that signal is, the more force you can create at a higher rate. And so the reason why focusing on the concentric contraction, especially when you're doing, explosive reps, once again, the good reason to always be measured. That's why we like to use. And now, by the way, let me be specific. Gymwear does not have anything to do with this podcast, but as you'll see in this podcast, that I steal all the equipment that I am promoting out there is for reasons, because I use it a lot and it's really good. But when you focus on improving, say, a specific load, if it's 50% of your 1RM, and you start being able to press that load faster and faster and faster, one of the reasons is because that the rate coding is getting faster and faster and faster. And so you're recruiting those high threshold motor units at a higher rate. And the reason why is because it's adapting for those higher cross-bridge detachment rates. So like when you're giving it everything you have, so maximum intent, the cross bridges, the myosin and actin cross bridges that are forming are detaching at a higher rate. And so you have to adapt to that by increasing the rate of the motor unit recruitment. So to get more and more of those cross bridges. And then the other the adaptation besides the rate coding would be the muscle fiber pennation angle. And so when you're doing a concentric contraction and you're shortening that muscle, by nature, you're creating more of a pennation angle. And what you're talking about is where those muscle fibers attach longitudinally to. There's always that longitudinal line that they attach to that runs flush with the tendon. And so at the end of the day, you want that force all going into the tendon, because the tendon is how you create motion. And so by focusing on the concentric contraction, you're getting that pennation angle change without the counterbalance of the eccentric. So when you do the eccentric portion of a movement, you're getting lengthening, and by nature, it's decreasing that angle. So if you're only doing the concentric contraction, then you're going to focus on, you're going to adapt by increasing that pennation angle because you don't have the balance of the eccentric contraction. So now that's a good one. So as you can see here, you have, just because you're doing concentric contraction, if you really do things at high rate, the rate coding is great for speed. So you think about like firing out of a blocks in a sprint, or if you're a linebacker and you're static for a while, you read the ball and then you explode. And so you got to really go into a concentric contraction, so it's good for things like that. But now if you're really focusing on heavy, slower concentric contractions, you get that muscle fiber pennation angle increase, which gives you an ability to produce more force, but it's not really going to be good for speed, because what happens is a steeper angle allows you to put more muscle fibers in as they connect longitudinally into where the tendon, the muscle tendon unit runs together to create force. And so you get you get room to have more and more muscle fibers. But remember, those are short muscle fibers because you're packing them all in there. And so they're great for force. It's like having a bunch of chains hooked to something holding it up. It's a lot of force. But those are short chains. So when they contract, not a lot of motion happens. Now, on the other hand, if you have muscle fibers running in series where they're running parallel to that muscle tendon or to the tendon, then those are going to be, when they contract, they're longer. So there's not as much force, but they're going to be faster. So it's just a give off. So you can, if you focus on the speed with concentric contractions, you get the rate coding. But if you do heavy things like deadlifts and pulls, you're going to get the muscle fiber pennation angle change. So it depends on how you use concentric contractions to the exact adaptation. But anyway, a good thing, this is where cleans and clean pulls, and it was it Verkhoshansky when he training. I totally blanked for a split second. But when he wrote the book Super Training, in there he's quoted as saying that a lot of the really good Olympic weightlifters is they seem to defy the whole force velocity relationship, meaning as they add weight, it doesn't seem to really change the speed of the barbell. It's because they just get so used to pulling the bar as fast as possible off the floor. So that's why they're so powerful. And it's a reason why it's important to use either cleans or clean pulls or trap bar jumps, whichever one you want, in your regimen often. Because the better they get at that, the better the body adapts in that eccentric contractions. So the eccentric is where it's lengthening. Some of the adaptations that come from eccentric contraction works, being specific to eccentric contractions, would be overall improvements of the stretch shortening cycle. That's going to be where you get better at the muscle spindles, get better at producing that passive force, and the Golgi tendon organ starts creating less inhibition. So what happens with the GTOs, the Golgi tendon organ, is they run parallel with the tendons, and GTOs detect force. And at first, it doesn't take a whole lot for them to inhibit the muscular contractions. They shut you down to prevent any type of tear to the tendon. But the more you train, the more the GTO gets, understands that the body is not at risk of injuries, so it creates less and less inhibition. So those two work a little bit differently. But also the adaptation would be stored. You improve your ability to store elasticity from your non-contractile elastic components, such as like your tendons and overall connective tissue. You improve your ability to store elasticity from contractile elastic components. So you think of the big one is the titin protein filament. That's the one that keeps the myosin in place and it resists stretch. Anything that resists stretch is going to be where you're able to store that elastic energy when you're doing something, say as a squat or a jump or a sprint when your foot strikes the ground. Number three, type 2 muscle fibers are also, type 2 hypertrophy is going to be one of the adaptations. Along with all of this is going to lead to increases in strength, force production, and power at specific rates, which we'll talk about in a minute, and higher rates of force production at whatever it is, the particular load that you're working at and rate that you're focusing on. Example of ways to apply the eccentric muscular contraction. And by the way, I'm going to have links to articles I've written for GymWare. I've gone in depth on all three of these. So this is more of an overview. And if you want to go on a deep dive, I will have links to all this in the notes as well. So, but ways to apply. Accentuated eccentric loading is going to be, in my opinion, is going to be where you get the most bang for your buck. And it's Dr. Tim Suckermel, who's done a ton of work, and lots of, not just him, but he's written 2 really good pieces of literature, and I will try to link. And well, if you read my article, in the article, you'll see where I've referenced his work. But a couple ways to do it. You can use weight releasers. And by the way, weight releasers are a great way to, and not for very little money, that they're a great way to use that eccentric contraction. And I recommend, I just think if more people would invest in those weight releasers versus like there's so much money, we spend so much money on all these things, we get little return. But weight releasers are very little for a big bang for your buck, and you can use them in so many ways. Like one, you can use them with near maximum loads. For example, with me, the first time I squatted over 800 pounds raw, I was using the weight releasers and I was lowering over 900 pounds. And when you get to the bottom, what happens with the weight releaser, they kick off. And so then I was able to stand up with 805, 365 kilograms, I believe it was. And so it's a great way to really push that near maximum or maximum loads. And one of the reason why I feel like they work so well is just it is the best use of post-activation potentiation, because you're getting that potentiation in the lowering portion, which doesn't cause as much fatigue as when you do the full motion. So it's immediately when it kicks off and potentiation is at its highest, and you haven't done a full contraction yet, so you don't have a lot of fatigue, you're able to use that potentiation to its fullest. So I would say this too: if you're going to use it for potentiation, it's important that you're using it with seasoned athletes, someone who's been in lifting at least 3 to 5 years. And squats at least one, I would say squats over 2 times body weight. Or if they're not doing that yet, there's just, you just do regular squats. And, until someone's squatting over 2 times their body weight, it's easy just to squat and you'll get them to 2 times body weight. You can also use weight releasers with sub-maximum loads, and it's a great way to really get better at strength, speed, and even make accelerated strength, those qualities of strength. It's great for, when you do a clean, you're mainly using that concentric contraction. But when you're doing, when you're using loads, say like 60%, but then you're using, somewhere between 90 and 100% on the eccentric portion, it kicks off into the, now it's a sub-maximal load. So now you're using that accentuated eccentric loading, and you're able to move, 60 to 70% faster than you ever could, once again, because of potentiation. So it's a great way at improving those qualities of strength. The key would be to measure. Make sure you're using, with GymWare, the reason why I like them so much is because you're able to measure the eccentric and the concentric velocity. So is it improving? So like if you're using the weight releasers and it's not really improving the rate at which you're moving a weight, then you're wasting your time, right? So another way to use it would be, say, holding dumbbells on the way down, let go, and then jump. It's going to really, and you can do that. I know you're only thinking, well, man, it's only 1 rep, but the studies have shown, Dr. Sukamel's, not my own, has shown that that potentiation is going to last, and that the improvements that you're going to get in muscle activity from the AEL is going to carry on through 2 more repetitions. So you can do sets of 3, and even though you're only really accentuating that first repetition, you're still going to get a potentiation on the next 2 as well. So, and finally, by flywheel training, there's several ways to use the flywheel, but one of the because the thing with the flywheel training, because we're talking about overloading the eccentric contraction, is that you're going to have to do it one of a few ways. Either get the really expensive units that automatically apply, say, 10% extra to the eccentric portion of the movement, or use the old Hatfield squat and just like get a barbell that's in front of you that's stable. So help yourself stand up. So you help yourself do the concentric, let go, and then it's on you to control that eccentric portion. So you're in turn overloading the eccentric portion by, now carrying on, because if you don't know anything about the flywheel, is that the harder you stand up, now that stores that elastic energy, and now boom, it's going to come back. And so now you got to overcome the eccentric contraction the concentric force that you've created by aiding yourself in the concentric portion. So, overloaded eccentric contractions, from movements like squatting and deadlifting, those are ways as well. So what I mean by that is that this takes a little partnering up. or using pins, say in a squat, you could lower weight controlled down to pins to where when you get to the bottom, the barbell's resting on the pins. The only thing is that you're only going to be able to do one total rep with that because, if you use weight releasers, you control it on the way down and then it releases and now you get potentiation for up to 3 reps. So that's only the benefit of that. But one of the ways, what was the great deadlifter? It was Vince Anello. He was the first guy to deadlift 800 pounds at 200 pounds or lighter in body weight. And he used, what he would do is he would get heavier weights in the pins and walk back with it and then lower the weight in a controlled motion so he's able to overload that eccentric portion of the deadlift. And then, just using things like Nordic leg curls are great ways. You can do reverse Nordic leg curls where you're really going to accentuate the quad tendon, the patella tendon. Of course, then the Nordic leg curls is going to be more of the, really as the hamstring crosses the knee behind you. So the biceps femoris, semictendinosus. And then, okay, so moving on finally, just so I'll quit rambling, isometric contractions. That's the final one of the 3 types of contractions. But remember, it's where you apply force without changing length of the muscle. But some of the adaptations you're going to get, and it's going to be dependent on how you use it. So I will say this, is if you want to target a specific joint angle as far as strengthening and hypertrophy at a specific angle, you cannot beat isometrics. And so if you're thinking about sprinting, think about the joint angle that the knee and hips are when they're sprinting. You think about the acceleration phase, transition, and of course max velocity. But if you want to really strengthen the tendons and connective tissue, then doing it then creating near maximum isometric contractions at the fully lengthened position of the joint and of the muscle is going to be the best way to overload the tendons and overall connective tissue are strengthened when you perform those isometric contractions at lengthened positions, at or near maximum as far as your ability to produce the force. And the cool thing about the isometric contractions, it only takes about 6 hours to fully recover from isometric contractions. Some hints I would give you, you want each set to last somewhere on average of 30 seconds. So you can do 5 reps at 5 seconds each or 1 big rep at 30 seconds. However you want to mix that up. In normal, anywhere from 3 to 10 sets. And what I would recommend too is you can do it every single day. So if you're rehabbing a muscle, it's a great way to rehab. Or if you want to target an area that needs strengthening, once again, it's also a great way. So some of the ways to apply, you can do it with pull, squats, or presses into pins, squats into pins from the lengthened position. So think about setting a barbell on the set of pins super low, and then just a few inches above it, put the second set of pins. So you get in the bottom of the squat and you push, and it's probably the bar's only going to move a few inches before you're really getting that maximum isometric contraction in lengthened position. I like to use bands because bands, if you're not giving a good enough effort, they will pull you off the bands, off the pins, and you'll see that you're not giving near maximum effort. But you can also do a very safe way would be leg extensions and leg curls. So think about it. If you're really wanting to strengthen the quads or that patella tendon, get into a leg extension machine, put it to a point where you can't move the stack, and there's your isometric contraction because you're already at the lengthened position. Or you can just do a wall sit into the bottom of a squat wall sit, and then press back into the wall, and you'll also get that same contraction. But also you can do pause squats and pause presses are a great way, but you're not going to really, when it's just pausing, you're not going to get the amount of connective tissue and amount of strengthening that you're going to get if you're able to give a maximum effort. So anyway, guys, that is show number 1. And so we're super excited about doing the Barbell Life again. And I'll have guests on as we go. I'll do some of the shows with just me or maybe me and one of our coaches here. But we'll definitely have guests as we go. And by all means, if you guys want to email me, Travis at riseindoorsports.com. If you want to email me any suggested people that you would like to see me get on the show, I'd love it. Or any topics you'd want me to cover, shoot. And as always, if you want to read a lot of my latest articles, you can go to gymwear.com. Of course, there's going to be more and more, and I'm putting up on mashelite.com as well. Go join our team. We're back. The cool thing about the new Mash Elite online team is that if you join our individualized programming section of it, you're going to get a free flex unit from Gymwear. And so we'll be able to do your testing, your monitoring, bar path, all those really cool data points we'll be able to get. And so I wanted to be able to do it in a way where no one else can. So we did that. We have great coaching. We'll also be having camps here at Rise Indoor Sports. We have the most state-of-the-art facility probably in the Southeast, if not America, not to mention all the equipment that we have with Gymwear. We have the Swift Performance. Their timing gates and jump mats are the best in the business. And then, of course, if you're an athlete, football player, soccer player, we have the Shred Meal by Tony Villani, the wicked genius sprinting coach out there. So we have it all, man. You guys can come. And, of course, you weightlifters, powerlifters, SuperTotal athletes, let's get back on it. I plan on growing this team just like it was before, but better. Probably not, I don't want as big of a team as I want a quality team that all gets along and enjoys working out with each other. So you can see all that stuff on mashelite.com. I'll also put, as far as the online team goes, the link will be in the show notes, and the link will be, if you're hearing this, if you're on my Instagram, the link to the online team is going to be in the show note, is going to be in that in the link in the bio. But we're going to get the online team put into the website. We're just getting the website worked on right now. So it's functional, but we want to get a lot of work done. One thing would be putting the online team automatically on there. So hopefully by the time you're hearing this, it's already done. But if not, there's ways to get to the online team. Thank you, guys. We're already running specials on the online team, by the way. You can Mash Elite Next Gen to get 40% off the first month. There's no commitment, so it's a great way to try things out. We have a lot of specials on our ebooks. But here we go, guys. We're going to give you guys lots of free content like we used to, and I'm looking forward to this next generation of Mash Elite performance. Thank you.